This proven method will allow you to endlessly create conversation topics so you never draw blanks. And it's not the same things that you've already heard, like active listening or just practicing talking to more people. No, this is the exact same method that I use myself that has allowed me to consistently and constantly come up with things to say and never have that awkward silence. If you don't know who I am, my name is Prince, and over a month ago, I had been practicing learning how to talk to people and strangers. I had been practicing like a year ago for 6 months, but then I quit and then I came back to it, and I came back so hard and so persistently that now I've learned so much more than I did back then, and I feel inclined to show you what I know. Now let's cover what the old method was. If you search up like tutorials on how to never run out of things to say, you'll often come across one redundant tip. And I'm not saying it doesn't work. This tip is called active listening, and it's kind of like purposely being present in the conversation, so you're listening to what they say, and by doing that you can kind of deviate off of it. So if you're talking to somebody and then they say, I walked my dog out yesterday, if you're actually paying attention to what they are saying, you can deviate from the sentence and you could ask them, okay, well, what dog? Or did anything else happen yesterday? So you can kind of get questions from the comments that they made. And this does work, and I would suggest it, but you don't really need this advice, because active listening really just comes down to kind of being relaxed and not tensed up. And you do get that just from, well, talking to more people and breathing deeply, so you calm down and you aren't like panicky and in your own head thinking about what to say. But there is one specific method that I've come up with that has allowed me to constantly come up with things to say. But here's the disclaimer, and it's going to maybe bum you out a little bit, but the truth is, you will never 100% of the time have things to say. Sometimes you'll be talking to somebody and they'll just be so incredibly boring that you just literally can't come up with anything. And that will happen, and you kind of just need to realize that you just don't really have chemistry with this person and not talk to them anymore. But also, I'm not sure if this is just me, but you know how when you're talking to a friend, sometimes you'll have this really interesting topic you're discussing, and then randomly there's just this moment of silence where you both have nothing to say. And it's not like awkward silence when you're talking to strangers, but it's kind of like relaxed silence, if that makes sense. Maybe you don't understand what I'm trying to say, but sometimes you'll be in a conversation and you'll have this sort of relaxed silence, like your brain wants to take a break from the conversation, but you won't be all panicky and anxious. You'll kind of just be bathing in the quietness. That also happens to me sometimes. So you won't 100% of the time always have things to say. But this will allow your brain, like the tactic I'm going to show you, this will allow your brain to more commonly and more oftenly come up with new things to say without you like actively thinking about what to say next. Because when you do try and like you're in your own head and thinking about what to say, what can I say after what they done talking, what it does is it stresses you out. So your nervous system is now overreactive, and now, I mean, your body language shows. We can see you like fidgeting and being anxious. And also, not only that, but something that I've learned is that when you're actively using your brain is actually in work mode. Like you're constantly trying to solve a problem. In this case, the problem of not knowing what else to say. And when you interact with problems like this, what happens is your brain commonly goes into this loop-like state. I don't know the exact neuroscience of it, but it goes into this brain loop, whatever it's called, you can search it up, and it just follows the same pathway. So you'll try and think of what to say, and then you'll come up with one thing to say, but you'll be like, oh no, I can't say that. So your brain will loop around and ask, what else can I say? And it'll come to the same conclusion, and then you'll be like, no, I can't say that. And it'll just be this endless loop where you don't get anything done. That's why a lot of creative people who like do jobs that require making new things, innovations, what they do is they take breaks. They go from work mode, trying to come up with something, to just relaxing, because then their brain isn't in this closed loop and they can come up with new things. Like how people normally say they come up with their best ideas when they are on a walk or they are sleeping. It's the same with conversations. You don't need to actively think. You don't need to panic. You don't really need to active listen. Of course, you should pay attention. It's common courtesy. But if you're relaxed and the person is talking about something that you like, you'll naturally listen. When you're talking to your friend, you naturally listen. You aren't in your own head. And if your brain comes up with nothing to say, then touche. So the method that I use to endlessly come up with conversation topics is kind of this concept of social gravity. Now, social gravity is essentially, what are you attracted to in a social conversation? So if somebody is talking about something that you really don't care about, talking about some video game, even though you've quit video games because maybe you're trying to improve yourself and be healthier, and you really couldn't care less about video games, the social gravity will be positioned in a way where you aren't attracted to them at all. You're more like repelled, rather than if you manipulate the social gravity and the person is talking about something that you really like because you purposely made it that way, and now you're very pulled towards the conversation, and now you really want to talk to them and you have endless things to say. And this is commonly seen with like very anxious people who don't talk a lot. I've had friends who they rarely ever talk, but when you start talking about something that they are interested in, bro, they have endless things to say, basically becoming chattermouths, chatterboxes, my bad. And I find it so interesting that many people don't do this, because they have these filters. Because you can, this is just something I've learned, but you can literally just ask somebody a question which is related to what you like, completely deviating from what you were talking about. So they can be talking about video games, and then you can literally just say, have you ever meditated before? And then, I mean, a lot of times, unless you're in some specific place like Bali, they'll say no. And then you can kind of tell them about how you've been meditating, and then you can deviate into self-improvement, and maybe they'll be inspired by you, and then you both get into self-improvement, and it'll be this fun, wholesome conversation. You can ask a question like that, and it sounds kind of like weird, like you're some stupid guy, why are you swapping the conversation when you were talking about something else? But you do this with your friends, don't you? When you're talking to your friends, sometimes you'll be talking about a certain topic and it'll get boring, and you suddenly just ask about something completely different, and your friend like just answers normally, like it doesn't even matter that you just completely swapped the conversation topic. You can do that with strangers. You can. So you can talk about anything. You can have an interesting conversation that you're naturally pulled towards, a deep conversation that fulfills your need for socialism and talking to people because it's something you're interested in and passionate about. And that will rejuvenate you, rather than like thinking of talking to people as a chore. Do I have anything else to say? And this also applies to even openers. So openers are kind of, and this even applies to openers. Openers are where, and this also applies to openers. Openers are kind of like hooks. You know, in this video, the first few things that I said. And this also applies to openers. Openers are the first few things you say to somebody to initiate a conversation. You don't need to have some custom-made opener that you always start with. Of course, at the beginning, if you're a little bit more nervous, then yeah. But after a while, you can literally just say whatever is on your mind and it's fine. I've literally seen some guy at the gym, never talked to him before, went up and I didn't say like excuse me or hello. I literally just said, bro, have you ever had those feelings where you're just really exhausted but you have a really difficult set coming up? And then it just kind of erupted into this nice conversation, and we were talking about how it's funny how you can be really tired, like sleepy tired, not actually exhausted physically, and you still need to have a really difficult set coming up. So you need to actually be energized, but your body is just weird for some odd reason. If you talk about things that you're interested in personally, I find that it's very easy to just know what to say and have millions of things that you can say without even thinking. Because the reason why you aren't coming up with things to say from the get-go is because you just aren't interested. Your brain, your body, your instincts don't want to discuss this boring subject that you couldn't care less about. So why would you force yourself to? It doesn't make sense to me. And maybe this comes down to ego. You put other people, maybe, on a pedestal where you kind of think they are above you and you can't disrespect them at all, or you can't focus on yourself more. But I find that the people who are truly social and very good at it, they don't care about what anyone else thinks. They have this huge ego where they think they are above everyone. So they talk to people and they literally kind of in their mind think, I'm better than you, I matter more, so I'm going to focus on my own enjoyment. And it sounds narcissistic, sure. But those people are the same people who have the best social lives and sex lives and relationships because everyone enjoys them, because this ego also gives them a level of confidence that is just admirable. I hope this helps. If you want to get better at socializing a lot quicker, I have a social protocol, top link in the description. It helps you get from level 0, where you can't talk to anyone, to level 2, where you can talk to any man at any time, no matter what. Check those out. And remember, consistency is over a lifetime. Bye-bye.